Thank you for checking out Real Talk Personal Finance. Shit's about to get real. Cash Flow King with you today. And in today's podcast episode, we have healthcare is a fucking joke. And then in parentheses, I should put in the USA. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. As always, we really appreciate it. We've recorded quite a few episodes here in February 2025 for the Real Talk Personal Finance podcast. I think my style this year has been maybe a little bit different in the first few episodes. For example, today I've calmed down a little bit since I came home because I had to go back to work and do a few things. But this is basically going to be a rant. So if you don't want a bitch fest, you can just go ahead and skip this episode. But this is something that has been on my mind for a while, and I thought about doing a podcast on it. And I know somebody that works in the healthcare space, more on the operational side of things. And I thought today, you know what, maybe I'll bring them on the show if they're willing to come on the show and talk about some of this shit. But in the meantime, while it's top of mind for me, I'm just going to go ahead and put this initial episode out there. I don't expect this to be overly long, but there's a lot that I have to say and some thoughts that I have about the healthcare industry. And I think more than anything, just our system, the way it is in the United States, that's kind of fucked up. So let me first say that I probably could have waited to do this episode and waited to see if I could get the guest on and maybe done a little bit of research about U.S. versus other countries and stuff like that when it comes to healthcare. But I decided to not do that. In fact, I almost didn't even record this episode because I just I thought, you know what, maybe it's not all that relevant, although I think it is, for personal finance. But then I thought back to an episode I did almost by, not accident, but just by happenstance on tipping culture way back. And in fact, we actually got a couple of premium subscribers as a result of that episode. And there were some comments at that time. It was pretty much like, hey, you know, this shit is real. I know what you're saying. I feel what you're saying. So I thought, you know what? Let me put this one out there and see if I'm fucking crazy or if anybody else feels the way that I do about what's going on or what I've been experiencing lately. Now, I will say I am coming at this from the standpoint of the consumer, a healthcare consumer, a user of healthcare, right? The end user. But I'm going to try, I guess, to see the business side of it from the healthcare organizations providing certain services. So what the fuck am I talking about? Well, I, over the past couple of years, have had to use different types of healthcare services, and I've noticed something that I've not really noticed before. I don't know if this is something that is brand new or relatively new or just in this part of the country or if this is a widespread thing or not. So I thought, you know what, let me go ahead and record a podcast about it. But I've seen a couple different specialists. I've seen physical therapy places, occupational therapy, and there seems to be essentially they want to grab money as soon as you come in the door, ideally before services or at the time that services are rendered. Okay. Now, I understand that everybody's plan, if you're using insurance, is going to be different. And I understand that for some crazy reason, if somebody doesn't have insurance and they're doing cash pay, that could be structured differently. But we are on a high deductible health plan where we have to meet our deductible in full, typically, unless it's for some kind of preventive services like your annual checkup or some shit like that. We have to meet our family deductible before the coinsurance portion kicks in. And I've had different plans over the past couple years in terms of the coinsurance. Sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 80-20 that you're responsible for once the deductible is met. But until that deductible is met, you're basically responsible, generally speaking, for 100% of the cost. And I'm fine with that. That's what I signed up for. I understand that. And I've gone through the analysis of, what kind of user of healthcare am I, and what are the differences in the premiums between these high deductible plans versus a plan that is not high deductible. What's the difference look like? And then is there an HSA contribution on behalf of the company? And then what about my HSA contributions that can go in? And I've done the front end work to basically say, all right, this is, what's going to make sense for me and my family to go on one of these types of plans. But what I've noticed more and more is something a little bit different than what used to happen previously. So previously, and in some places, you go in, you receive services, they will bill your insurance, and then, you typically will get an explanation of benefits. Here are the codes that they used, and here's what you went in for, and here's what they billed us. And then we have these negotiated or contractual discounts or whatever based on your plan, and here's your patient responsibility. And then you say, okay, cool. That matches up with the bill that I got in the mail from this place. I'm going to go ahead and pay it. And you pay your fucking bill and you're done, right? What happened to that? Because that's really not what's been happening lately. And it's driving me crazy. Not because it's necessarily costing me anymore, not because I can't afford to pay the bill, although I was asked today if I wanted to go on a payment plan for $217. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I had to compose myself at the front office there, and I was just like, I said, this is probably going to sound horrible, but are there really people that go on payment plans for $200? Like, they can't pay the $200? And they kind of looked at me like, yeah, buddy. So I don't know. Maybe this is going to turn some listeners off. Maybe I sound like a pompous asshole or some kind of dickhead. I don't know. And, my wife basically, she doesn't say it like this, but she always tells me pretty much to chill the fuck out. Like, don't take it personally. There's a lot of people that can't afford to pay these bills and that, aren't able to pay the bills and, that may never pay their bills, right? So from the standpoint of a consumer, a patient, a user of healthcare who is a responsible individual, who is financially stable, who pays their bills on time, and as long as everything checks out and they did what they said and they billed appropriately and they ran it through my insurance, whatever I owe, I will pay. Apparently, I'm in the minority of people out there. So I'm just curious to the listeners, like if you guys are experiencing people wanting to collect money on the front end. So they're like, hey, your estimated cost is going to be $217 for today's visit. And then a few minutes before, maybe 30 minutes before my appointment, I got a message through their little messaging app that they use, and their I forget what her title was, but basically their insurance coordinator person sends me a message through this app saying, hey, based on the type of plan you have, we estimate that your portion is going to be around $175 or less for today's visit. I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. So I go in there, and first the girl's like, yeah, $217, would you like to pay some of that today? Would you, you can go on a payment plan if you want to go on a payment plan. And I looked at her and I'm like, can you just bill it to my insurance and then send me a bill afterwards and I'll just pay my bill like a normal person? And she's like, no, unfortunately, we have to collect something today. She's like, well, how much can you afford to pay? I'm like, I guess the whole thing. I said $217. I said, but wait a minute. I said, I got a message from your insurance person, the coordinator girl, and she's telling me it's going to be a little bit less than that. She's saying it could be $175 or less. And the girl's like, all right. I'm like, well, why don't we just do, and she's like, why don't we just do $100? I'm like, okay. And I gave her my card, and she ran it for $100, and that was that. And I pretty much was like laughing on the way back to my seat in the lobby because I'm like, my goodness, like what the fuck is this world coming to? And then I saw some other people that had walked into that particular office, and I thought, okay, this jackass definitely ain't paying their bill, right? And that's terrible for me to say, but it's true. Stereotypes. But I was just really taken aback by that. But this is literally everywhere. I'm finding it everywhere. So this is a specialist, basically, that I went to today. It was kind of a one-and-done appointment, very brief appointment, and that's fine. There's other places that I go to consistently, and I'll give you an example. There was one place that I started going to last year, okay? This is for physical therapy. And so last year, by the time I went in to see them, we had already met our family deductible for our plan, and so I believe at the time we were on a 90-10 plan, so we had 10% co-insurance. The company picked up 90%, we had to pay 10%. Pretty good deal until you hit your out-of-pocket maximum. Okay, fine. So they basically just, once a week, they would say, hey, we want you to, essentially bring your balance to zero. She's like, that's how we do it here. We collect weekly. And I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. Like, you can't just run a tally for a month and like send me a bill. Well, they don't really like us to do that, and blah, 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 blah. And it kind of sounded to me like if affordability was an issue, then maybe they'd work out some sort of a fixed payment arrangement or payment plan or something. And for the negligible amount of money that it was, I'm like, whatever. So I would just pay, once a week. And I'd be in there a little bit more than once a week, but I would pay once a week. Okay. So then they have all these signs out towards the end of the year. Fast forward to this year, 2025. Okay. I'm still going there. And they do a great job, by the way, so I have no problem paying. But they said to me at the beginning, hey, it's a new plan year, it's a new deductible, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, yeah, no shit, I know. I didn't say it like that. I was nice. But, I guess a lot of people don't realize that, and they get kind of sticker shock when they realize how much they have to pay for their visits all of a sudden. And so I'm like, all right, cool. And they're like, yeah, so what we do is and I don't know if there's a magic number about, with this or not, but the number seems to be $75. Because this happened in a couple different places. They said, so what we do is we collect $75 and then we'll bill you for the difference. And I'm like, okay. So the first couple times I went in there, I check out at the front. Now instead of once a week, it's every visit. And I'm like, all right, $75. Maybe the third or fourth visit, all of a sudden, it was $95 or $90. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I thought we were doing $75 and you guys were going to bill me the difference. And then they say, well, yeah, your outstanding balance is $95. You're still going to have to pay it either way. Do you want us to just collect $75 and then we'll bill you the $20, or do you want to just pay it now? Kind of making me feel like a jackass, right? And I should have just been like, yeah, you can go ahead and bill me for that $20. Put me on a fucking payment plan for $20, right? But instead, I was like, no, I'll just go ahead and I'll pay the $95, no big deal. Okay. And then fast forward another visit or two, and it was 100 something, then 130, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I'm like, I've never received a bill from you guys. And they're like, yeah, Cash Flow King, because your account is always at zero. You do a great job of keeping your account at zero. I'm like, well, doesn't everybody keep their fucking account at zero, So I'm like, whatever. You just charge me whatever it is and bring it to zero. And I checked out most recently, and there's two ladies that work at the front, and one of them, who's not normally the one checking me out, says, hey, did you want to pay the $75 today, or did you want to pay the $100 whatever? And I was like, just go ahead and pay the $100 whatever, And she starts telling me about her dad, who never wanted to owe anybody anything, and that's the way to do it, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, so from a consumer standpoint, it's just an inconvenience. I would rather, yes, I understand what my health plan is. I know I have a deductible for several $1,000s. I am very well aware of that. I can afford that. That's why I chose that plan. It makes sense for me and my family. Please send me a bill like a normal fucking business does. Render your services. Have some working capital, essentially, to be able to make payroll and pay your expenses and do all the other things. And then send me a bill and I'll pay my bill at the end of the month, or however you guys do your billing. But I should not have to be swiping a card every fucking visit or once a week or whatever. And it's just annoying to me. But I like them. Like I said, they do a good job. So I just kind of got used to it and said, fuck it, I'll go ahead and pay. And that's fine. But it's just really, really annoying. So there's that, right? So then, there's another OT that we go to. We take our daughter to weekly. And that's actually kind of funny. I kind of had it out with them at one point because it's a long story, but basically same thing. Hey, new plan year, new deductible. When we started going there, they wanted, and I don't know where the number comes from, but once again, that magical $75 deposit. We need you to put $75 deposit, which, by the way, they didn't even give me a receipt. And, I ended up having to call their billing office at the end of the year to ask for that. But again, because we had already hit our deductible and it was the end of last year, we were just simply paying the 10% coinsurance. So they were just billing against the $75 they had on deposit. So it wasn't a big deal, and never ended up actually getting a bill from them until I called them and said, hey, can you send me a ledger or something? I want to be able to, reimburse myself from the HSA or whatever and have something showing that, we paid you guys the $75 at the end of, or whatever it was, going into the end of 2024. And so she said, yeah, sure, I'll send it to you. And then while she had me on the phone, she's like, well, so it looks like the visits are going to be between this and that. This is what they've been averaging last year, and you're coming into the new plan year now. And so we need to figure out how much to collect. And I'm like, okay. And so we settled on the number of $140 a visit. She wanted to collect $140 a visit. And I'm thinking, all right, whatever. And I had this similar thing that I said to them, which was do people not pay their fucking bills? Can't you guys just bill me? And she basically said, no. And I'm like, okay. So she says, all right, well, we'll agree on the 140, and then when you guys go in, once a week or whatever, they'll collect the 140. Well, there's a young girl sitting at the desk, never really talks to anybody, didn't ask for shit. I shouldn't have to run up in there and be like, hey, here's my fucking credit card. Charge me $140, please. Thank you so much. Like, it should be part of their process when, a client or patient walks in the door or family walks in the door, that it's, you welcome them. Hey, welcome to, whatever, OT, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, now that you're checked in, Mr. Cashflow King, it looks like your payment due today is $140. Now, I wouldn't really like that, but they should be coming to me and asking me for it. I shouldn't have to, essentially beg them to pay them. So I decided, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to make them come to me. So now, it's actually... I'm making this a very long-winded story, I guess, but I just can't help it when I get on the topic. So what ended up happening was I didn't end up paying. There were a couple of visits that had gone by. All of a sudden, the billing girls must have looked at the account or whatever. It still hadn't sent me a bill, by the way, or I would have paid it. And all of a sudden, one day, we're having lunch. They call my phone, leave a message. Immediately, call my wife's phone, leave a message. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I called them back all pissed off and basically had it out with them. And the way we do it now is they call me at the beginning of every week for the prior week's visit to collect payment. That's right. I make them fucking call me. You want to collect payment and your people on site at the location are not collecting the payment? I shouldn't have to beg them to take it. You can fucking call me once a week if you really want my payment that badly, and I'll gladly give you a card number and we'll go ahead and make the payment. And that's what we do now. So every week on Monday around lunchtime, I get a phone call from one of the girls in their billing office. And I think it's fucking stupid. It is what it is. Again, I know I have to pay it. It's fine. But at one point I said to her, I said, can I just give you guys like $1,000 like on deposit or whatever, and just like we did with, once we hit our deductible last year for the 75, and you just bill against that, and then if, we terminate services or stop going for whatever reason, like you just send me, my money back. And she's like, yeah, we could do that. I said, okay, great. I said, how long would it take if I give you $1,000 deposit and you bill against that, and then we terminate services and there's there's a balance there that, hasn't been earned by you guys? How long will it take for you to send me a check or whatever for my money back? And you know what the response was? Oh, well, we do that quarterly. Excuse me? You want to fucking call me every week to make a payment? And you want to give me my own money back if it came to that? And you're going to make me wait a whole quarter? I said, no. That doesn't work for me. You all can go ahead and call me once a week, and I'll just take the call, and we'll fucking pay it once a week. Like, this is stupid, So anyway, so there's the PT thing. There's the OT thing. At one point, I was checking out another PT. I started going there, and they did the same thing. Well, we'll go ahead and send you a bill. We'll bill your insurance, but we need to collect payment. And it's not like I have a copay. Like, my plan specifically does not have a copay, so this is not what I'm bitching about. It's not like my plan has a copay. It's a deductible, right? And they're like, well, we need to go ahead and collect $75 basically every time you're here. And I'm like, okay, what are your acceptable forms of payment? Bullshit. More and more places. Another thing that really chaps my ass is that everybody wants to charge a fucking transaction fee. This isn't just healthcare. This is everywhere now. You go to a massage therapist. You go to, whatever. Any relatively small business out there, and they want to charge you a fucking credit card fee. You pay with a card, it's an extra 2% or 3%. We went to board the dogs, I think it was last year, and they want to charge a 2 or 3% credit card fee. And oh, by the way, if you did pay with a credit card and they did charge that fee, guess what they're going to hit you with? For all my listeners that like the tipping culture show, you know it's coming. Yep. Would you like to leave a tip? Fuck you. Would you like to pay that 2 or 3% credit card charge and just eat that and make that cost of doing business and build that into your prices like every other fucking business out there? My goodness. So anyway, we pay cash for very few things, but we pay cash for doggy daycare or boarding because I'm not paying the extra 2 or 3%. Bad enough, people feel so entitled sometimes. There was one girl one time where I forget what the exact dollar figure was, but it was like she owed me like $20 and like some change, like literally some cents. And I was like, oh, I'm not really worried about the change. I'm not really worried about the cents. In other words, like I'll take the $20 or whatever it is, and or it was like $23 or something and change and some cents. And I was like, I'll just take that or whatever. And And she was like, "Oh, are you sure? Thank you so much." And she was going to put like $23 and change in her pocket. And I'm like, wait, what? Did you misunderstand what I said? And so I felt bad, and I was like, "Here, just give me the 20." And I think there was like $3, 3 ones, and some like literal change. And I'm like, "You guys can just keep that or whatever." And I took the $20 bill, and I still feel like I got fucked on my way out of there. Could have bought a premium, 1 month of premium membership at Real Talk Personal Finance. But anyway, I digress. So all these healthcare places, it seems like the number is $75. Where does that come from? I don't know. Is that a state thing or, a certain legal thing that they're able to ask for or not? I don't know. And, I'm just going to go ahead and pay it. But these types of things really fucking piss me off. I wish we could go back to the day where back in the day, they would render services, again, run it through your insurance, give you time to review your explanation of benefits, send you a bill in the mail, which hopefully match that. And as long as everyone's in agreement on what was done and how much it is, then you go ahead and pay your bill. But apparently that's not how this country works anymore. I don't really get it. So anyway, that's my point as a consumer, a patient, a user of healthcare. Now, from the business standpoint, again, as I mentioned, I think that's the cost of doing business. And if you can't afford to run a business and operate without having to collect money every time somebody walks in the door, and you basically just, you bill them after the fact, that's on you. You shouldn't be in business. You shouldn't have a medical practice or a, therapy location, physical therapy, occupational therapy, any kind of therapy, whatever. Like, that's just part of being in business for my, in my opinion. But there are people out there, and one of them, I don't know if we'll end up having her on the show or not, who works in healthcare sort of on the operational side, basically said that if places didn't do that, they wouldn't have a business to run because the vast majority of people aren't paying their bills. I was bitching about this on my way home. I was talking to my wife, and I said, told her what was going on. And she's like, yeah, but if somebody has to make a decision in terms of are they going to buy food or are they going to pay a medical bill, they're going to buy food. And then if they don't pay the medical bill, well, that bill doesn't get paid, and that hurts that, that organization, that practitioner, whatever. And my thought is like, well, yeah, but I mean, that's just part of the deal. You're going to have a certain amount of write-offs. You're going to have a certain amount of, bad medical debt or whatever. But like, it shouldn't be, again, the thing that pisses me off as a responsible consumer that pays their bills, that is not going to stiff anybody, that I am constantly being met by somebody else on the other side with their fucking handout, because I have to essentially provide the working capital in my mind for them to run their business for all the deadbeats that don't pay their fucking bills. And for those reasons, in my opinion, in the USA, at least from my personal experience, which is obviously a very limited sample size, but that's one of the reasons I'm doing this show, to see what you guys think, that healthcare is a fucking joke. It just is, So what do you do? You know what I mean? How much do you want to push back or not? And I've not looked into the legality of it. Can they actually do that? Can they refuse services or not? If you tell them you're not paying anything, can they, can they refuse to see you? I don't know. I would assume and imagine that that's probably a state-by-state thing, depending on the state that you're in. I'm not an attorney. No legal advice, right? But to me, it's just crazy that a lot of these places are operating this way. And it's unfathomable. And maybe I'm being a little bitch about it, and I'm taking it personally, and I shouldn't do that. And what did my wife say? Like, you can't let it hurt your ego or something like that. I'm like, I'm trying not to take it personally, but I can't help the fact that I don't think that they're running their businesses and their healthcare practices in a way that they should be, because it seems somewhat punitive. I got to pay you. Like today, I had to pay before I was able to see the specialist, right? And it was a quick visit, in and out. I'm probably still going to owe them a little bit of money after, they go through and do the billing and whatever, and I'll pay it, but I'm not thrilled about it. But it's just crazy to me that you have to, everything is pay us now, and nobody wants to wait for it anymore. And so I guess just how big of an issue is this? Maybe I should have done some research before today's show. Maybe we'll get the other person on that I keep alluding to who works in healthcare operations and can maybe shed some light on that in her experience in terms of, what this looks like. But I know there's a lot of people out there that unfortunately are not able to pay or can't pay, and it is what it is. But I feel like for most average, everyday, middle class, working people that go to work, get a paycheck, have some healthcare benefits, they're going to try to do the right thing. I know people are squeezed. I know inflation continues to be an issue. I know that a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck. But even if they had to put them all on payment plans, like that they would still get their money. It's just mind-boggling to me that I feel like I'm being peppered all the time for $75 here, $75 there. Oh, today it's $130. Oh, by the way, how much can you afford to pay? Would you like to go on a payment plan for $217? Fuck you. Send me a fucking bill. All right. My rant's over. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. If you got feedback, realtalkpersonalfinance@gmail.com. Click on the link in the show notes to text the show and send us a fan mail message. We'll read it on the next one, and we'll go from there. Thanks again. See you guys in the next episode.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.